can we do for better personal or planetary health? Now the carbon cycle, you all know, is something that we've been thinking about for 200 years. And I'll get more into that. But we've made a very big impact on the carbon cycle, and it's not been positive. You can read the fine print later, but essentially we've taken away the things that really restore the cycle by sequestering carbon, and we've done that because of a number of reasons. And the main reason I think that we've done that is that we've become what is effectively is anthropocentric. And we, instead of looking at as ourselves as part of this, we've separated ourselves and made our species, the human species, the center of all activity.
Superior to everything else.
And absolutely, and that creates a problem. Oops. This is supposed to work, but it's not working the way it should. Is this in the
Slide one.
Slideshow.
I'll
Go back in slideshow.
So it's supposed to do something else here, but it's not doing it. Anyway, so this started changing actually in the early 1800s, and people don't realize that people like Fourier, who was French, actually began looking at this issue of carbon making a difference molecularly on the planet that long ago. And when you begin to see that was science, okay? And the best science is based on real observation, objective observation. And so his contribution to this whole issue was, okay, the atmosphere traps heat. So we really, from a scientific community, very focused, very few people were having this discussion. We're talking about the planet trapping heat back in 1824. All right. So that's almost 200 years ago. We kind of discovered the phenomena that the planet traps heat. That was followed up by Tyndall, who was British or Scottish, and he effectively said, okay, we know we trap heat, but he came up with the idea that not only does it trap heat, but he identified some of the components of this, like water vapor, which is a big component of trapping heat on the planet, and carbon dioxide. We can get into a scientific discussion about this, but as we warm the planet up, we actually create more water vapor, so it becomes a runaway warming process until it goes through a catastrophic plateau, and then it starts moving in the other direction. But we're not talking about years, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years of cycling. So Tyndall basically identified this issue, and very importantly in Sweden at Uppsala University, Sven Arrhenius in 1896, now this is only 100 years ago, basically identified the greenhouse effect. The fact that this is related to the emission of carbon dioxide, the burning of fossil fuel. So that we've known this very concretely for about 100 years or 120 years. And in the 50s, Charles Keeling in Hawaii basically started measuring the amounts of carbon dioxide building up in the atmosphere. And what's very important, when he started this in 1960, now this is already 100 years after we have discovered the fact that we're trapping heat on the planet, and largely it's due to human activity. And certainly in the 1860s it wasn't a lot of industry, but it was the burning of fossil fuel. As the population geometrically increases, it's that many more stoves, that many more fires, warming homes, warming villages, that it was actually, as Keeling looked at it, it was actually measurable. And the interesting zigzag here, if you see the build-up and the drop, but it's going up steadily, that's seasonal. Because different parts of the planet, basically when you go through a seasonal change, you get a spike in carbon dioxide, and then it goes down. So it spikes in the autumn when trees lose their leaves and the leaves decompose, and then it goes down when the trees start blooming again and they start sucking up the carbon dioxide, because to them it's a nutrient, it's a form of nutrition. After this, in the 70s, about 20 years after Keeling started his work, a very important piece of work was done by James Lovelock, who, by the way, is still alive, last time I checked. And he was extremely involved in the measuring, the spectral measuring. He actually invented the electron capture detector, which was used by the Jet Propulsion Laboratories to measure through a spectrum. So you didn't have to be there, you can just shine light through the atmosphere and measure the different molecules that were in the atmosphere. Now, he didn't do this to measure the molecular structure of the atmosphere of the Earth. He was actually doing it for GPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, to identify what planets might or might not have potential life. Because the idea, or the theory, was that if you saw fluctuations in gases on a planet, that meant that there was some activity that was like life. It may not be oxygen and carbon dioxide. It could be any other set of gases, but it means there's some kind of gas exchange going on. And he made a small fortune with this invention, allowed him to do his own research, and he ended up doing a lot of modeling, not only of planets with this, but he said, well, if this works for other planets, let's turn the mirror around and look at what's going on Earth.
Yeah, right.
And use the same process to look at fluctuations on the planet. And he became an ardent spokesperson, almost religious, in his theory of the Gaia theory, which means, essentially, Gaia means the living God. And he's looking at Earth as a living system that one can say is breathing and developing over time. And he takes this to say, we don't separate the sciences. All these sciences are studying the same living system. The theory was highly criticized early on, but it actually has been validated since he first wrote this in '79, or the theory emerged in '79, that in fact all of these different gases interacting, we're really looking at a system that is a life form. If you look at fungus and other large systems, we identify a mushroom or something small, but we know that they're part of a bigger system. And you can extrapolate that outward and say, our species, are in fact part of the living system that is the planet. And so we're a component of the system. His work in terms of measuring, he did a thing called the DAISY model, where he populates parts of the globe with different colors, and they say it's DAISY because he was using brown and yellow, and seeing if you see a lot of light colors on the planet, how much you reflect versus dark colors. And obviously we've come to know that the dark colors, especially in the oceans when there's no ice, counterintuitively, when there's no ice, they actually absorbs more heat, and when there's ice, it reflects more heat. So these systems have a way of accelerating their condition. Ice tends to make more ice because it's reflecting heat, and warm water, which is dark, tends to absorb heat and create more water and less ice. And we begin to see that these systems are highly interactive in ways that we never really thought of before. This has become obviously more well known since he started writing this about these things in the 1970s. But as he was looking with his models and then projecting his models forward, he began to see that we are on a very, very accelerated rate of decline in terms of the atmosphere. Obviously, this has been proven out even by others, including the International Panel on Climate Change. But he wrote The Revenge of Gaia as a way the Earth will actually begin to stabilize itself. And his theories go a little bit beyond the IPCC theories. He's looking at thresholds that are much closer in time, because he's looking at peaks and then sudden high increases relative to the change that may occur. Where the IPPC is looking at a very gradual change, he says we'll reach crisis points where we'll have collapse, different types of collapses. And one of his theories talks about the fact that we are still experiencing a fairly